With regard to the coast, and I'll start with Fort Bragg, and we have not had extensive discussions with them in the last few weeks. They do have some alternative water supplies. One actually is Pudding Creek, which is part of the old GP mill water right there. They have not asked specifically for any assistance from us yet, but we are available as a part of this our technical assistance. We would be more than happy to do whatever we can on our side to help either here within the county, or if dealing with the State Water Resources Control Board. We certainly have had these discussions in the past. With regard to the groundwater issue, our options are certainly much more limited on the coast there. And I think realistically what we can accomplish there is perhaps this notion of the rural residential water supply assistance and helping to identify and improve the institutional flexibility so there are more people that can access that. But quite honestly, that's about the best we can do in the short term as I see it right now. So.
You also referenced in your report that there was conservation funding that somehow we missed out on. Can you give us a little more detail on that? Sure.
This was last summer, Arnold Schwarzenegger, with the previous state drought declaration, they expedited the release of grant monies, which were on cue to be released at a later date. They did a partial release of those funds. There was competition for those grant monies. For us, it was really, yes, we were not as prepared as we would have liked, and we didn't have the hard numbers in terms of, if we change out this many toilets, this is how much water we'll save. But really, what killed us in that instance was the fact that the primary criteria was how much money are you willing to match with this grant. And so when you looked at the people that got the grant monies, it was larger districts in a lot of them in Southern California where they already had major programs in effect, and they could say, okay, we'll put in 80% and we'll take that 20. And so they were very well positioned. They had their programs in place, good strategy, they utilized it, and that's how they got the money. We were not, collectively, we were not prepared, and we did not have a good strategy, and we were going in there at the last minute. I mentioned earlier, as far as what we've done here on the county facilities, and the idea here is there will be an opportunity to go after more money, and we need to be better positioned, and that's part of this of let's do our homework, let's get our numbers in order. We may not have the money in hand, but let's get our facts together so we can do it.
Well, along this line of getting our facts together, the information I got that sort of paralleled what you're talking about from the Local Government Commission was that bond monies and other grant monies from the state were not going to be able to replace or supplant any other local dollars and expenditures that local entities would be doing with respect to water development, conservation, housing, and so forth. And what was referenced at a conference that I brought back to the board that got absolutely no attention, and that was that local entities could use mitigation fees and developer fees to do the local match to participate in these programs. And that left Mendocino County basically out of the equation since we haven't implemented those kinds of fees. So I think I think that this body has to take a lot of responsibility for putting us in the position that we're now in. I think you've done an excellent job with the board direction that you've gotten in the past, but I had to push very hard over a year and a half to get a small incremental amount of money directed towards conservation, and it was always sort of the thing that was put on the back burner. And I think this example here today sort of elucidates the complexity of the problem and where we're left when we haven't done the appropriate planning. So what I'm getting from and I thought you brought forward some very, very good components, talking about the drought declaration, the ability to work with other entities, some things that I think you mentioned yourself were not fully fleshed out. You needed more time to look at some of these things. But I think what really needs to happen, given that this could be something that might preoccupy the citizenry and rise to the top of one of the county's priorities for the months and maybe even years to come, is I think we really need to have you, given the limited resources that we have, really analyze your budget again and really give us an assessment if what you were directed to do last year with respect to expenditure is really the best use of your time, the best use of county dollars, and maybe we need to make some changes. I'm hearing from the water districts here that technical expertise and guidance is a high priority. But if you're doing that, it means you're not doing something else. So I think in the context of a drought and the conservation components that it demands that we've yet to put in place, given Supervisor Shoemaker's comments, for instance, Fort Bragg had a mandatory water enforcement action late in the summer, that you couldn't water your lawns except during very limited hours, and you couldn't wash your car. I mean, things like that. They put that in place because they were forward-thinking in that they knew water limitation was definitely on the horizon. So I think that we really need a professional evaluation on the expenditure side. And with staff limitations, you have a very small staff. How can we be the most useful partner with our entities in the community, given our limited resources? And I think it would be good if you sort of dealt with that head on, instead of, sort of cutting the corners, and then we find out later that you've been cutting corners and we're not happy with that. I think we need to really look at this head on and really move conservation maybe to the forefront out of this, the immediacy of this need. I think it's unfortunate that we didn't take steps in years prior. I think if we had, we could have been better positioned for this. But I think the time is now, and I think if it does require a reallocation of your staffing and resources, it's best that we know about it and we have that discussion, and I think that's a prudent thing to do in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. We need to, Roland's looking for some direction, some specific issues. Would you just briefly state what, so we
Yes,
can put that in the form of a motion?
I laid out 5 major categories of actions. The first one was public outreach, and the drought declaration was...
Roland, I'd like to make an announcement before anybody else leaves. Wednesday at 4 o'clock here in this building, Supervisor Brown and me will be having a ad hoc committee discussion on Decision 1610. So if there's any folks out there that are interested in attending that.
Okay. I have laid out 5 major categories of activities or actions. The first was public outreach, and included in that was the drought declaration. If the board so wishes, we can come back and have it ready to go for potential adoption on March 3rd. The March date is attractive because on March 1, here in the Russian River, is most likely will be declared a critically dry year. Right now, technically, it's a dry.
Why don't you just get those issues together and get them back and probably just present it on maybe next week's or whenever, as soon as you can, the consent calendar?
Well, I think we could give the direction today if he just briefly lists, restates the items again.
Okay. I was concerned about it not be those action items not being agendized.
Right. What the board can do is give Mr. Sanford direction to bring the various items back on specific agendas.
That's what I was saying.
Well,
Package it all together.
I think to me, I mean, perhaps if we hear the items that Roland has on his list, it's within our purview to give direction for him to move forward on those items today, and county council could judge that for us. But
Right. Your agenda.
we can't adopt the resolution, but we can direct that be brought back. And then the other items, I think he could start working on them if we give direction today.
That's what I was saying. You can give him direction to